You're on.
So good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
It is so wonderful to have you here. We're continuing our discussion on the basics of the science of mind, and more specifically today we're talking about the way it works. What is the it that we're talking about? Last week we discussed the thing itself being the universal spirit, the infinite spirit of life. Many of us call it God. Many of us call it first cause. It's the divine intelligence. It's that thing of life itself that we're all a part of. It is the infinite creator. So how does it work in our life? Another thing that we identified in terms of last week's lesson is that the very nature of the infinite spirit of life is the nature that each one of us have. We express that nature. We became aware of the fact that the very life of God is expressed through us, and we express through that thing that we call God, first cause, the infinite principle. That God is full of love and God is full of law. And we have to learn how to work with the love and law that is present here in our life. One of the first spiritual principles that we focus on, we believe in God, the living Spirit Almighty, one indestructible, absolute, and self-existent cause, that it manifests through everyone, through everything, every form that we see. Today, we're going to talk about another principle, and that principle is that we're surrounded by a creative intelligence that receives the direct impress of our thought, and it acts upon it. Because that helps us to understand how it works, how God works through us, for us, to us. The life which we live is a universal life expressing through us. So how else could we live? Our thought and our emotion is the use we make, consciously or unconsciously, of this original creative thing that is the cause of everything. That's what Dr. Holmes said. I want to refer you, for your own time of reading through and studying this, to the Science of Mind textbook on page 36. When we say that spirit is expressing through us, we recognize that there is a power and a presence in this universe, and that the very power of God is a power that is available to us. Now, many of us who have studied Christianity, have been in Christian churches, we have learned that the power that we have is the power of the Word. It's our spoken word. What are we saying? What are those things that we're saying, such that when those words fall out of our mouth, they are creative? They're creative. We are declaring what it is that we want to experience. Many of us have worked for years and years and then decide, well, I want to do something different, and we go off and we do something different. But before doing that something different, we have an idea that is within us of what it is. And then we begin to speak it out. Some of us have a vision or dream of making that happen. But what is required is that we speak our intention, we speak our words out, and it's like those words become active. Active. Those words become active. Something happens in the universe. Something happens in this stuff in which we live. And at some point, it manifests into some kind of form. Lele manifested a wonderful organization, the Girlfriends Club, and it's doing well, celebrating 13 years now. Now, the song we just heard was Everything Must Change. And I am willing to believe that the way that organization looked and was formed when it first showed up on this plane of being in operation is different from what it is now. Is that true?
Yes, totally.
Absolutely, everything has changed, and it changed because of somebody's words that were spoken. Now, I know someone will say, oh, Reverend Carolyn, come on, you can't tell me that every little word that I've said is going to manifest. Well, maybe not, because you put some limitations on it or you do some conflicting things, but there are words that we speak, and they aren't special words. They are words that have power, and they really mean something to you, and they come about. So the way it works is that the Spirit of life partners with us in that thing that we're talking about, and it becomes made manifest. Every Sunday morning as I'm driving to the center for service, I have an affirmation that I pray. No accidents, no mishaps, no tickets, no delays, divine right action for everyone, divine safety for everyone, for me especially, for all of the drivers around me, driving both defensively and offensively. I also pray for the highway patrolman or any police officer that's out on the road, safety for everybody. And the majority of the time, I have smooth sailing and I don't come in contact with any of that stuff. But there are times that I will run into that area where an accident is. The only impact is I can't drive as fast. I have to slow up. I have to take my time. And I say at that moment, okay, what's going on here? And basically I do a little prayer work, and I'm saying, okay, the angels go before me, making my pathway clear and straight, and then me and the car start maneuvering this way and that way, and we get through. We get through. So that is, from my perspective, the power of my words. Now, someone would say, oh, that can happen to anyone. You know, yeah, you're right. But I've been doing this for well over 20 years. I know that it's not coincidence that's happening here. I know this is divine right action. I can give you an even better example this morning as I was coming on. Not a whole lot of cars out there, and I'm just driving along in my lane. Someone decides to just come over, you know, an SUV. I have a smaller car, SUV, big, one of the big ones, just decides to just come on over in my lane. The long thing had not cleared the space for it to get in. And it was like when I realized what was happening, even before I got my foot on the brake, it seems like the car started slowing down. And then the driver realized, oh my goodness, I didn't clear enough space to get in, and switch back into their lane. But it was like, oh, I thank you. The angels go before me, making my pathway clear and straight. Neither one of us stopped, but cars behind us saw what happened and they slowed up. So it was a good thing for all of us. The safety happened for all of us, not just one. But that wasn't the only one. As we moving on along, you know, I come upon, here is a motorcycle rider who I have to give this person props. Really driving, riding in a lane, not between the lanes, but not going as fast as the other cars. And then there was a little blue car who said, you are on my last nerve. You need to get out of my way. And that driver too did the same identical thing. started moving over into the lane right in front of the motorcycle driver and had not cleared enough space. And the little motorcyclist is making a whole lot of noise, you know, revving up the engine to get the person's attention. So the motorcyclist had to swerve and get out of the lane. But the accident did not happen. And you know, we're all like, oh, I said, oh God, that's two. Things happen in threes.
Things come in groups, it seems.
Things happen in threes. Guess what? A third one happened. A third one happened. The closer I got here, a third similar near occurrence of an accident happened. But the reason why I share this is because when we begin to understand the way it works, God moving, expressing through us, we are using the very power of spirit, the power that's in the universe for creating and doing our life. We see what happens. We can see it. It becomes a real and a tangible thing, not just an intangible, it becomes tangible. So in sharing this, I know that because I have built up this awareness, this consciousness, this is what's going on, this is what's manifesting in my life, not only for myself, but it's manifesting in the life of others, people that are around me as I'm driving. I am really talking about safety. Not getting a ticket is because I really don't want a ticket, you know? But it's really safety. It's the love. It's the divine protection that we believe we receive and expect from Spirit. And because I'm expecting that safety and that protection from Spirit, I am expecting it, I am accepting it, and today it was fully demonstrated, I am receiving it. That is my belief. That is my belief. So that goes to how much can we believe that we can receive of God's bounty, of God's grace, of God's love in our life. How much? And it comes down to how much can you receive? We have to put the question back on ourselves. What is it that you're aware of? God is not involved in quantity. God is involved in quality. I'm going to give you love. My love for you is full of integrity. It's full of everything that you need. God doesn't say, oh, I'm going to give you a little bit of love today. That's all you deserve. No, when we are working with the infinite spirit of life, God loves us completely. God loves us fully. Why? Because God has already said, you are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. Now, come on. You say, oh, but I did this and that. God says, you are my beloved, in whom I am well pleased. So all of the stories that we may have told ourselves about we're not good enough, we're not pretty enough, we're not educated enough, none of that matters in the infinite spirit of God, because God says, I love, and I love you. How does that work? It just does. Because God has said, I have called you forth from the foundations of the earth, and in you I am well pleased. That's how the infinite spirit of life works. Now, I mentioned last week that God is a God of laws. And what we teach and embody here in the science of mind are spiritual principles that you find. We cannot violate those principles. We cannot change them. They are fixed. And the one that we're dealing with today, we are surrounded by a creative intelligence that receives the direct impress of our thought and it acts upon it, is valid and true for here, right now. It was valid and true when all of creation came about, and it will be valid and true when we have left this plane to move on to some other expression of life. It's true. I remember reading in the Old Testament, I believe if it was not Ezekiel or Isaiah, it was one of the prophets, said, I give thanks that you always hear. Speaking to God in prayer, I give thanks that you always hear and answer prayer. And in the New Testament, Ezekiel also said, that prophet also said, and I give thanks that you answer even while I am yet speaking. That means that relationship that we have with God, we are receiving from Spirit. It's the words that we are speaking, our words of power, giving direction in terms of that which we choose to experience. Jesus said, I give thanks that you always hear and answer prayer. And the example that we see in the life of Jesus is that Jesus spent time in prayer. He spent time in spiritual practice, and he spent time saying the words of life that supported that which he was doing. Am I saying you should be like Jesus? I'm just saying, come on, everyone. This is an example that is universally present in our life, and that we're able to look at that and see how it worked for him, and maybe it could possibly work for you. Dr. Holmes says we're thinking, willing, knowing, conscious centers of life. We're surrounded by, immersed in, and there is a flowing through us as a creative something, call it what you will. The sum total of all of our thought, will, purpose, and belief creates a tendency in this law, this principle, that causes it to react to us according to the sum total of that belief. What is it you believe? What is it you believe? A gardener goes forth in faith to sow his seeds when he is planting, whether they're seeds for flowers, food, or just for beautiful shrubbery around the place. This gardener has learned that as he sows, so shall he reap. That the law works the same for all of us alike. What are we sowing? Are we sowing words of life, words of goodness, words that are helpful? Or are we sowing words of despair, words of discouragement? Many of us are so aware of our current situation with our government today. And it's not my intention to talk about that. It's my intention to point you to listen to words that are being spoken, and whether or not you can identify if those words seem to be coming true. Think about that. Think about that. Think about that. I'm speaking words like the government shall open again. The government shall open soon. Why do I speak that word? I speak that word because I have care and concern for many of my friends who are they're caught up in this situation, and I would love to see a better day for them. I also know that there are some government workers who are on the job and they are being paid simply because their agency or department has enough funds in their budget to pay salaries at this point. But if this government does not open back up, even they will be caught up in this. Our words are powerful. Our words are life-giving. I want to ask you to begin to choose words of love, words that are life-affirming and life-sustaining for what we need in this day right now. Words that are life-affirming and life-sustaining for what you need in your day right now. Because you can be the author and finisher of what's happening in your own personal life right now. You are in charge. You are in charge. You, partnership with the infinite spirit of life, can create exactly that which is pleasing for you. We are creative individuals. We're using the creative power of life every day in every way imaginable. Every way. I can imagine each and every one of us have a story in which we can tell where our words have found us. We have spoken words. Some were good and some were bad. And if we're honest with ourselves, we can remember, oh, I spoke that terrible word. Here's the story for you. One of my colleagues talked about as a teenager, she hit upon this statement and she thought it was such a cool little thing to always say that she was always saying it when stuff went awry. She would always say it. Well, as time went on and her life was developing, and of course with her being a maturing young lady, becoming a maturing young lady who's ready to marry, she did get a marriage proposal from a guy. And this guy came to where she was. She was in this restaurant and she worked there. So it was not that she was a guest in the restaurant. And he proposed to her and he gave her this beautiful ring that she put on her hand. And the ring needed to be sized. But in the excitement, it's like, oh, I love my ring. I'm putting it on and I'm going to wear it. And she proceeded to work. As she moved through the day, she wasn't thinking about the ring. But she noticed at some point, oh my goodness, the ring is gone. Where's the ring? Where's the ring? And it was not fully paid for. Where's the ring? Where's the ring? Oh my goodness. And they looked high, they looked low, and she could not find the ring. And it came back to her, a saying that she had said. The next day, she found her ring. She had made some macaroni salad. She found her ring in the macaroni salad, and she had been saying she would lose her ring in a macaroni salad. And it happened. She lost the ring. So of course, we can laugh all about that, but for her to have started way back when, before this guy was known to her to be her future husband, she had been saying she would lose, if she had an engagement ring, she would lose it in a macaroni salad. She actually did. She actually did. Now you think that, it's funny. It's funny, but our words are powerful. God is simple. We think there's some complicated way that we have to approach the spirit of life, but no, we don't. There's a simplicity to this beautiful relationship. Our job is to just allow ourselves to receive it, accept it, and to go with it. And we are a great part of what is happening here. I believe what I have shared with you has to do with how our mind works with the very mind of God. We recognize that there's only one mind. That is the mind of God. And it's the mind that each one of us is using now. We understand that in our analysis of this, from the mental perspective, there's the conscious mind and there's the subconscious mind. And it is in the subconscious mind there is the reservoir of everything that we have said, everything that we've done. The memory of all of it is contained there. So the mind remembers that it's there. You said, oh, here's the opportune time for this thing to happen. Lose your engagement ring in a macaroni salad. It was there. So the opportune time came and it happened. Oh, it happened. I can think of some things, but I don't think I want to wait a long, long time for them to happen. One of my favorite sayings, because I just I wanted to make a point, used to be when hell freezes over. I will do that when hell freezes over. And yet I found myself doing things that I had previously said I would not do. And, it would come into my mind, but you said you wouldn't do that until hell froze over. And I would say, oh, hell has frozen over. I had to let go of that. And what that means in essence is that we can change our minds. Our thoughts are things, but yet Spirit says, well, it doesn't have to be that way. If you don't like what you're seeing there, you can change it. That is how it works. God says, I am with you always, always. So if you don't like what it looks like right now, you can change your mind for something else, and you can bring something else new and beautiful into your existence, into your way, into what you have going on. That's how it works. That is how it works. And the majority of the time, we think that we need to apply this teaching, the way it works, to when we're using affirmations, or when we're doing spiritual mind treatment, or when we're sitting in meditation, or whatever your spiritual practice is, journaling. We think, some of us may think that's the only time, but no, God comes in the everydayness of life through people, places, things, and events. And our intuition is right on target. It is right on the job. That spirit, that noise, that voice that we hear within ourselves, we know that's our intuition that is leading and guiding us in some of these things. Our intuition sometimes will tell us to go to the left when we go, oh, no. The GPS say go right in the car. The intuition said, no, go left. No. Surrey says, no, go right. You go right and you get caught up. Oops, I should have gone left. Something was leading and guiding you. That's how it works. That's how it works. So with that, I want to bring this to a close. Once again, I believe in the simplicity of the infinite spirit of life. And I am going to invite you to just go within now